So first of all, I want to thank you all for attending the Commercial Real Estate Roundtable. I started the chamber in December of 2017, so I'm actually working on my 4th year. I started at the same time we started developing the 5-year economic development program. And even though we had this roundtable set up before that, we moved all of our chamber programming towards every item, everything that Alex and I do, and Slade, and Jane for that matter, and most of the chamber, everything that we do, every event can tie back to some different element of the 5-year economic development program. And so one of the things that came out of that program was the Forward for Sight and the partnership. And I've had a 20-year career working in and out of public and private businesses, but somehow I've always been attached to a chamber, if not a staff member. I was once an executive director, then I was a board member in 4 different communities. And so I'm proud to say that I'm in a community now where we have the partnership. This is a real partnership. The 5-year economic development program, probably, I didn't know what the community was like before that, but I've never, in the 4 that I've been in, I've never worked in a community where we've been able to work hand in hand with not just the county government, but the city municipalities and the school system. And part of that is the goal of this Commercial Real Estate Roundtable group is to have a connection with those of you that are working in commercial real estate. And one of the things, and I think yesterday I was in a meeting with Commissioner Mills, and she said it best, you know, we don't want to be Washington. We don't want to pass something and then find out about it later. And so as part of our partnership, we like to have these conversations with the community. And so in a moment, Vivian's going to come up, but before we really get started to talk about the topic of the day, I'm going to ask Brooke Perez, who is with Economic Development in Georgia Power, one of our biggest partners. When we do something and we do it big, we always bring Georgia Power in, but Alex got involved in doing virtual tours, and we would not be able to do that if it weren't for Georgia Power and their engineering department. We now know part of what's going to linger after COVID is when site selectors look at it, they've had to adjust to the virtual world. So did we. And one of the things that's not going to go away is the money they save in doing virtual tours in part of the elimination of the sites. And so with Georgia Power, with their engineering department, we can take your renderings and make them 3D and put it on our website. That would give people, site selectors, an opportunity to see what, at least from a rough perspective, what we're looking for and what we're promoting in that area. So anyway, I want to ask Brooke if she'll come up. The way we have this set up and working for the folks in the virtual world, I need you to come here and stand. There's going to be a Q&A at the end. I'm going to take the microphone. So when we get to the Q&A section, I'm going to need you to take the microphone or either come up here. Actually, don't come up here because the commissioners, that would be a little bit off-putting for anybody. So I'll bring you the microphone, and that way the question can be heard online. So Brooke.
Good morning. Can y'all hear me okay?
Yes. Yeah.
I'm gonna leave my mask on because if I take it off, they might not let me back out, okay? And I am beyond excited to be here. I'm excited to be in Forsyth, to be talking with each of you face to face. No one is coming up here and grabbing onto my leg or barking. So I don't think, right? Okay.
Alex.
Yeah, Alex behaved, okay? Yeah, Alex knows we've had a lot of crying baby calls together. So just thank you for having me. And you guys do have a lot of special leaders, partners, the Forward Forsyth collaborators here in Forsyth County. The growth you guys are experiencing right now in a pandemic is unbelievable. And that is much a credit to your leadership, your entrepreneurial spirit, engagement from folks like you. So as Scott sort of mentioned, sorry, this mask is, I had to rep for sites today and it's a little, fitting a little funny. So what is Georgia Power doing in this space? Raise your hand if you've never worked with Georgia Power in an economic development capacity. So all of you have. So I can skip my stump speech and let you get to the real stuff.
We got an online hand.
Oh,
Yeah.
am I supposed to listen?
No, saying they hadn't worked with you. Go ahead.
Oh, good. Okay. All right. So sorry for all of you in the room. You can go back to catching up on email. I'll speak to our person online. We've had a long history in community and economic development. We've been doing it before the State Department of Economic Development here in Georgia because we were building out infrastructure here in the Southeast and we wanted to get business and industry to come down here and take advantage of it. Fast forward 100 years later, we still have a very robust team that works statewide, hand in hand with local partners and the State Department of Economic Development to continue to attract and retain and support existing industry all over the state. We do that with a lot of tools. We do it with extensive research products and services. We do it with engineering products and services, whether we're taking drone photography and footage or doing renderings and SketchUps. But the bottom line is we're a tool in your toolbox, okay? We're an extension of your Forward for Sites team. I work with brokers all over the state, or excuse me, all over Metro. So I have North Fulton, DeKalb, Rockdale, Forsyth, and Gwinnett. Every day is unique, every day is different. Whether I need to help you fast track a transformer, I may or may not be able to do that, no promises. Or I need you to help make a local connection on the ground and anything in between. We're a tool in your economic development toolbox. If you're looking for workforce or demographic data, give us a call. We'll see how we can help you. So just think about us that way. And it has been a great pleasure to work with your team here. I'm excited to meet Slade, ushering in some new leadership, and I'll have my cards. They're old, I can't get new ones, so they're for a specific conference. Just ignore that part. Reach out anytime, and thanks for having me. And thanks for being my guinea pigs on first public speaking again. It's been wonderful.
Thank you. Alex and I did a presentation in January, and it occurred to me that was the first time I've worn a tie in a year. This one probably makes my third time. I want to mention we couldn't do this without the help of our sponsors like Brooke. There's another one that our gold sponsor, Phoenix Systems, Arlene Seifert. She's in the virtual world. I want to just acknowledge her. You got a brochure in front of you of what they do, and want to say thank you to Arlene and Phoenix Systems. If you look on the agenda, this is where Slade would be. You know, we would welcome him with a lot of pomp and circumstance. Maybe we'll do that at the end. But Slade and I actually went to Reinhardt College together, so we've known each other for almost 30 years. We kind of ran in some similar circles. And when James told me that, you know, that's not a very common name, I'm like, I know him. So I'm going to ask Vivian to come up. Vivian McKeely, most of you guys know her. When I talk about the partnership, this is where the partnership for us really starts. I'm economic development on the marketing side. Vivian is economic development on the county side. And typically when you have a project, we're out marketing. We're trying to get you guys to look at properties here and consider projects. And when you get very serious and start needing some technical questions asked by the city, that's where we bring Vivian in. And so we try to make this as smooth a handoff as possible. Vivian and I kind of started in these roles at the same time. I don't know really what it was like before, but I can tell you there's been a lot of great improvements in customer service and how we operate as a county. And a lot of that goes directly to Vivian, and I enjoy working with her. Vivian has been working, actually we've been working a lot on projects that the tree ordinance and things like that just, you know, how can we make this a better community? And in order to do that, then we have to know the best way to make those things happen. And so she's done some research on commercial impact fees. And so she's going to come up and talk to you about it for just a moment.
All right, so it's a pleasure to be with here with you today. Thank you for the chamber for inviting me to be part of this. Thank you to our Chairman Mills and Commissioner Cooper. Thank you for your direction that you're constantly providing on economic development, the resources you provide us, and a lot of familiar faces in the room. It's good to see everybody. I'm going to step over here and let me know if you can't hear me. So I'm going to give you just a little bit of a background on impact fees and how we kind of got to where we are today. So back around September of 2020, we had a consultant, Tischler Beese, provide a report to the county on impact fees. I think that was precipitated by a desire to look at specifically road infrastructure and see how we're going to be able to pay for roads. So one of the ways a lot of jurisdictions decide to pay for that is through impact fees. So the idea was, let's have Tischler Beese look at impact fees specifically for roads. So that's what they did. September of 2020, they provided a report to the county, just like a lot of consultants do. They have a packet they provide. And then after that, I think our commissioners kind of took a look at that and looked to me and said, is there any possibility that you could maybe do an analysis? Because I think our commissioners are aware that you don't want to operate in a vacuum, especially as it relates to economic development. You want to make sure that you're remaining competitive, you're taking all kinds of factors into consideration. If we're telling you on the one hand, we want to bring commercial development here to the county, and on the other hand, we're doing something to hamper it, we don't want to be doing that. We want to make sure we're looking at the full picture, looking at what other jurisdictions are doing. So that's what I did. So the analysis that I did took a look at Cherokee County, where their impact fees are, Dawson County, City of Alpharetta, City of Cumming, and of course where Forsyth County is currently, and also looking at what the consultant recommended. And what I'll tell you is they had a maximum on their recommendation. So go below, you just can't exceed the top. So that's kind of what I looked at. What I'm going to share with you today is just to let you know that I think different jurisdictions look at this topic differently. For a lot of jurisdictions, what they're looking at is they're looking at ITE codes. So if you're not familiar with that, I'll explain a little bit. So an ITE code, so ITE is an institution of transportation engineers. And what there is there's a manual. A lot of you may know this already, but there's a manual that basically has trip generation rates in it. So what it does is it say, for instance, it breaks it down and it says for a gas station, for instance, what is the trip generation rate for that? And what they do is they turn that into a code, and then that's what some jurisdictions use to determine what the road impact fee should be. So if you're looking at jurisdictions like Alpharetta, Dawson County, Cherokee County, what they're doing is their impact fee schedule is very long. It's very detailed because what they're doing is they're looking at land uses specifically, right? So you can imagine how many different land uses there are. There's just in retail, commercial, you can imagine how many different ones there are. So they're looking at them very specifically to see what is the actual trip generation rate. And again, they pull that from the ITE, Institute of Transportation Engineer Code. So maybe that's a little more detail that you wanted, but basically what I'm trying to say here is that some jurisdictions like Alpharetta, Dawson, and Cherokee, they have a very detailed list of different businesses, and that's how they determine what the road impact fee should be. For Forsyth County, and actually for City of Cumming as well, we don't have that currently. So currently, we're not using ITE code specifically to look at that. What I believe that we're doing is maybe looking at one general category and applying it across the board. And of course, right now, I'm sure you know, Forsyth County only has impact fees for commercial development, essentially under public safety. So we don't charge road impact fees. That gives you a little bit of a background. The research that I did was provided to our board of commissioners, provided to our county manager. So I think right now, and I'm sure the commissioners can correct me if I want to misspeak, I think right now it's more of an analysis time, looking at what other jurisdictions do, and also it's looking at what we're trying to pay for here. What are we trying to accomplish, right? So we want to kind of strike a balance and make sure we're responding and doing what we need for the community, but also not doing something that puts us at a competitive disadvantage to other communities. So with that, I'll turn it over.
Thank you, Vivian. I'd like to ask the Commissioners Mills and Cooper if they make their way up. One of the things about this partnership, I really enjoyed these ladies. I think it speaks well when I reached out to them and asked them, I said, you know, I know this is not a topic everybody likes to talk about, But they're like, oh, no, that was the whole purpose of this. We want a listening session. We want to, these are topics that we have to discuss at some point. And they were more than willing to sit down with us. And ladies, from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate you coming and willing to engage with this community. And really, I enjoy working with you. So we're going to ask you to talk for a few minutes, and then we'll have some Q&A at the end.
Our chair needs to go first. She is a headliner.
I think this group, a lot of them have heard me before and they're probably sick of hearing me. Scott was way more politically correct with saying Washington. I think my statement was, we don't want to pull a Nancy Pelosi and adopt something and then try to figure out what's in it later. And actually, I think what I said was, we don't want to adopt impact fees or a tree ordinance or other things, and then have a commercial developer come in and say, I can't go in your county because the cost is so extreme. And it's going to cost me this. And we have found that to happen before. And that's why when we hired Vivian, to be our economic development person in our office, and we hired Jerry, they both came from out of complaints. I mean, we were having complaints that people could not get their CO. I mean, they could not get open, or they could not get through zoning, or they could not, permitting in particular. And that they were, I told the group when I was here a few months ago that when I was on the chamber board, I was tasked with trying to make the planning department be better. I couldn't do it then, and so I ran for office, and 8 years later, I still didn't feel like I could do it, and so we hired a county manager, and literally, Molly can attest that I really believe that Kevin Tanner, if he can't get it done, it can't be done. I mean, it just can't be done. And the reason I thought Kevin Tanner was the right person for the job was because he's not a bureaucrat, meaning he did not grow up within government. He actually has been a builder. He's been a developer. He's experienced the problems within the department. And I feel like that, you have to experience it to know how to fix it. And please hear me. I do not blame the departments for the issues. A lot of it comes from the very people that are sitting up here. It comes from
Who's the other three?
well,
That are
there's
sitting
three,
here.
but it comes from the people that make the decisions from on high. It comes from the community. It comes from the people that vote people in. It comes from the reaction of government. I mean, typically government overreacts. There'll be a problem. A Love Hotel comes in on Antioch Road, and it comes in unexpectedly from, an attorney finds a loophole, and then to correct the loophole, you make a whole bunch of ordinance changes and different rule changes. So another one can't do that. And the repercussions from that hurt a whole bunch of unintended consequences later that cause a lot of good things, problems. And that's how government works. And that's the problems that come. And that's just what happens. And so we're here trying this year desperately. My goal as chair, and I think Kevin Tanner has said this repeatedly, we want to provide better customer service. And that's not just to a developer, that's to the individual home builder. I think the tract builders have got it down pat. They don't need help. They know how to work the system, but we need help commercially. We need help, individual home builders. I've had people that I go to church with that, when you become a commissioner, you don't even get to go to church in peace anymore. I mean, I sit near the front and people come by and shake your hand telling you, I got a problem with my road, I got a this, I got a that. It's just like you're not safe anywhere. But it's I think that we forget about, and that's a problem that we're trying to fix. We become so inured to the system that we become our process becomes friendly to that system. And we forget lots of times. I'll give you an example. When, and Vivian knows she was a part of this. Vivian's wonderful, she's our troubleshooter. But when Derek Jackson came in with his dealership at my district, I mean, he hired an out-of-town construction company to build his dealership. And it was a nightmare for him. And part of it was the construction company, but we've become sort of, you know, it's up to everybody else to figure out our system. And, you know, like we're like a victim of our own success because we've been so successful. I call it, you know, I grew up here, so I have my way of saying things, but we've gotten a little too big for our britches. You know, like we're so successful that we don't have to take the time to teach people sometimes, or to go the extra mile to tell them, well, these are the roads. This is, you know, like put a sheet together to explain how we do things, or to just what I call good customer service. And we're going to do that. This is the year. I mean, we're going to do that. And we're going to take the extra time that it takes, because that's what you do when you appreciate people. And that's what being a government should be about. You know, it's serving other people. And so that's our goal. And we're going to get back to the basics and do that. And that's what Kevin Tanner believes in. That's what our board believes in. And we're rolling back in that way. And we're going to return to that. And I think that I think it has to start at the top. And that's one of our most important goals this year, is to do that. And I think when we reflect that, I think, and when our top county manager reflects that, I think it'll be reflected all the way down. I'm already seeing a difference, and I'm hearing about it. I know Vivian in her department is getting compliments about, and that's where we need y'all. When you experience it, we need for you to say it, and need to say it to other people, because when it's so often that all you hear over and over again is, Forsyth County is the worst place in the state to do business, the worst place I mean, you can't find a worse county to do business in. But when you see that it's a better place, I wish you'd say it, because we're working really hard to lose that. I mean, my comment back is, oh my God, could you imagine what our growth would be if we were better? I mean, if we were a better place to do business. And that's what we're hoping, that we will be. You know, we want to shed the bad reputation. I mean, we want people to say it's a great place to do business. I mean, they want our business, and they are happy that, you know, we were treated like a king. That's our goal.
On that, agree with everything that Chairwoman Mills said, but to add to it, of the feedback from you, if you run into obstacles, please tell us what the obstacles are, and tell us quickly. Tell us when you run into them, because with the system that we're setting up for it to be directional, for you to have a sheet, this is how you do it, you follow through. But we need to know where the bottleneck is, so to speak. And even to the point of personnel, I can tell you that without giving away too much, when Kevin Tanner came on, there was a person that dealt with the public, and this particular employee was very rude. Just rude. And this person had told someone that was coming in to get a permit that they couldn't do it. They couldn't pay for it in person. They had to go back and do it online, because that was the only way we would accept it, was online. And this person was standing there. And this employee said, no, we're not going to take your money. You can't take it. You're going to have to go home, because that's our system. He took care of that. Kevin Tanner took care of that nonsense. So that no longer exists. And that person that is in that position now is someone that is very customer friendly. So a lot of it too is the attitude that you get, I'm sure, whenever you come in. And as commissioners, this is one of the things that we've been working on, and we don't even know a lot of times, well, most of the time I don't know it's happening unless you tell me, or unless you tell Vivian. And all of your commissioners on the board really want to see our commercial growth. And we want to work with you, not against you. And we do support you for that. But I need to know exactly what it is that you need from us. So if it's okay with you, I would like to open the floor to questions. Or I have questions for you, and for you to give me some ideas of what it is that you need from us. So Scott,
I want to expound on just a little that we're talking about in economic development, so they'll know.
Okay.
We've been meeting, I don't know, for months now. We've been meeting, there's a group of us that's actually been meeting for a couple of years that's been trying to make some UDC changes. I know Scott Hanlon's been part of that group, and tell me your name, Tommy. I got part of it right. You've come to some of our meetings, and we've just been breaking down some just impossible UDC problems that, and we've actually made some changes. I mean, especially with industrial, just some modifications to the UDC that's, I think, been impactful. It's slow, government's slow, but there've been some changes that I think have been good ones that we have made. Lease things, some different things. And I think when we do the lot of record, that's going to be a big one that some of the surveyors have talked about that needed to be done. That's really going to cut into their money making, but it's going to help individuals. I mean, I think that that's going to be a big one. But one thing that we were wanting to do for the chamber is put more tools in their toolbox to give them recruiting power, meaning county initiate property, locate property within each of our districts, that we get it right on the land use map, you know, give them more to do, because what's happening, things that I have noticed, and my background was, before I got into this job, was in real estate, and I sold commercial and residential, not houses, but like subdivisions, and was trying to get property to a point where we cut down the length of time, because time is money, but trying to get people into that commercial real estate quicker. And having it where the chamber, you know, if people are leaving Atlanta by the droves, you know, that they have a place they could come into quicker. And so if we could identify the properties and get them already slated as commercial, we might get ahead of the residential market, that they wouldn't gobble up all the property, you know, residentially, if we could get it slated as being commercial and do as much of that as we could ahead. So we're in the process of doing that now. We're in the process of each commissioner is supposed to be looking in their district at what they think, and working with different people, getting advice from different people, and especially the chamber people, Vivian, you know, of getting, looking at property within their district, making changes to the land use map, and then and maybe if they want to, county initiating that property and bringing it forth, and going ahead and getting it slated to whatever that zoning is. I have told people I will county initiate it, and I do. I don't think twice about it. You know, I'll cut down the time. It doesn't faze me if it is a, you know, a good use of property and it is for industrial. I'm not going to do unless a subdivision comes to me and it's down zoning and it's going from something horrific, you know, like one that Scott brought into me that is 900 lots going to much lower. You won't see me doing a subdivision unless it's a down zoning, but you know, if it's an industrial park or, you know, something that's helping our tax base and bringing jobs to our community, most of us, I think, would definitely entertain doing that.
All right. COVID protocols require me to hold the mic. So we want to open the floor up for questions. And raise your hand if you have a question. I'll come over, hold the mic for you. Got Lou in the back.
Morning, thanks for your service to the community, by the way. I'm with KW Commercial, and I have some clients who would love to build some apartment buildings in Forsyth County. And can you tell us what kind of assistance we can get with that?
That's like a 4-letter word. I don't, did you hear any of us saying anything about apartments? I mean, I've actually had, the Falls is in my district, that the apartments, they were zoned like in 2005, and weren't built. And so the guy, Jeff something, when he came in to meet with me, I mean, I was groaning before he got in the room. And I mean, I told him if there was any way whatsoever I could have stopped him, I would have. He worked with me and we made them be the absolute best that we could. And I mean, they sold them last year for $70 million. I mean, that was and we put a lot of conditions in place, maintenance conditions. I mean, I think we got them to be, they're nice. I mean, I know that the community absolutely hates them, but we put things in that I think the greatest fear of the community is what will they be in 10 years? It's not what they open up to be, it's what will they be in 10 years. I hate the fact that they're on 400 and that everybody has to do a U-turn to get back to them. I mean, I realize that a community has to be made up of all different kinds of homes. It can't be just one kind of home in community, but I think we do have to be really careful about the balance.
We do, in our text digest. And I've asked this numerous times, and I'm not sure if anyone can ever give me an answer. If you compare how the property tax is paid by the apartment buildings owner in comparison to if that were individual dwellings, the property tax that would be paid, how does that compare? And I never gotten an answer on that. Because one of the things that's really important that we have to do as commissioners is make sure that we get that tax digest balance as much as possible. And right now it's very heavy residential. So which is one of the reasons for the commercial emphasis, as well as for the apartments, inside the city limits. You've got a new set of apartments coming in West Shore right there on Turner Road and Marketplace Boulevard. Quite a few, it's 5 stories. And the new apartments that are across from the city center is going in. And if I'm not mistaken, there are apartments inside the city center and expansion as those that are across the city center, those are expanding. So that's also a matter of demand and need. We don't want it to get to where you have too much of one thing. And I know, for instance, which is not apartments, but for instance, at one time, what we were getting for developments was request rezoning for 55 and older developments. And that was all we were getting. So it looked as though we were getting out of balance. And you don't want to do that in a community. You want to make sure that you're balanced. And again, putting the commercial first. That's just the meat of the tax base, is the commercial.
Who had the problem? Sorry, I did. Hey, we have a bunch of developers, builders, and everybody is just like, at this point in time, they're like, I'll build it anywhere, but if it's like, yeah, I'm sure you've been hearing this forever. What can we do to pull these people back? Because from the time we put someone under contract to the time we get their OPP, it's a year plus. I mean, that's like become the biggest headaches.
That's what we're trying. I mean, we're trying our best to do that. I mean, we're trying to do, to change that and to show better customer service. And I mean, sales are through the roof. I mean, right now, we've got the lowest inventory of homes that we've ever had. And my schedule, I mean, District 4, I've asked the other commissioners, are y'all drowning the way I am? I mean, my schedule, I'm working 10 and 12 hours a day. And my meeting schedule, I think I'm out a month right now. And it is, but it is mainly, I mean, it's everything. I've got industrial, I've got everything coming to my district right now, but homes, and I've got a lot of that old crap left, and there, it's all coming in too. I mean, it is, and all the track builders, it appears, most of them are back. I mean, they're all coming because there's there's just nothing out there. And, you know, people are getting backup to backup to backup contracts. People that don't even have their houses on the market are getting calls. I mean, Dennis Brown, that was a commissioner with us, just sold his house and moved to Dahlonega. He didn't even have it on the market. Somebody called and offered him a price he couldn't turn down. I mean, he said, I wasn't even thinking about selling, and it was somebody he went to church with. I mean, so it's anybody's thinking of selling, now's the time to sell. It feels like a bubble again, though,
And,
sort of.
and you don't mind me interjecting, Kevin Tanner had actually reached out and asked us for, what do you guys hear? And that was one of the things. And so we have expressed that, and I know he's heard it and addressing that, so.
Yeah, especially in the industrial market, and that's always.
I was gonna ask you, a little more specific on that. If
Yeah,
you're
we don't work
talking
in
residential,
residential,
commercial,
we're strictly industrial.
just strictly industrial.
So all of
And-
our developers and builders are just like, hey, anywhere but.
And now these that are saying, anywhere but Forsyth County, how long ago was that? Were they saying this just yesterday, or were they saying this last year? Oh, and do you know, when was the last time?
Yesterday.
Yesterday,
Prime
okay.
example, yeah,
And do you know
yes.
when the last time was they tried? Because I don't know if they're still reacting to a situation that we had, say, 3 years ago, because we've changed dramatically. And Vivian's been responsible for a lot of that change and walking these through. I have had folks come in from a commercial standpoint, and Vivian has been there to walk them through every bit of it.
Mhm.
So on the commercial, if it's a product that, we can't do the every single house or every development, but on these commercials, she's great. She really is. And she has perfected a lot of this. So it would help if I knew how current those complaints were, and then we could pinpoint them.
Well, I mean, we have a builder who purchased 4 buildings on Performance Drive back in December. He wanted to put, it was just dead warehouse space. He wanted to put one office in a bathroom. Took 3.5 months to get his CO.
And there's the permitting, goes in the permitting
And
process.
then they said, when then he didn't realize he had to have a framing inspection because he asked for a list because he did it himself. And they gave him a list of everything that he needed, all the inspections. Framing was not in there for some reason, but he goes through everything, and then they're like, well, framing inspections, you gotta have one. And he was like, well, here's the list you gave me, it's not on the list. Well, the computer system, we just switched over again, but you still got to go. So then they had to go in and tear out the walls
And see,
inspect.
those excuses for us to come back and say, well, it's a computer system, it doesn't help you at all. It doesn't help your friend at all.
And he's a very good developer.
Yeah, and I'm a person, I
That's another,
don't,
he's just like, dude, I'm done with this.
yeah, whenever, and stuff like that, when you're trying to give it as an explanation, to me, it starts to sound an excuse, and I don't like that. I don't like to be on the receiving end of that. I'm really not tolerant of it. So on that, if I could get a little more detail afterwards, if this is still going on, and Vivian and I we'll work on this, because that's.
And that's
we're gonna
stuff that
stop.
Kevin Tanner needs to get involved
Yes.
in. He needs to sit down with that guy, because I think that's the difference of having somebody, and I can already tell you, like, I can give you examples of just issues, having somebody like him that will take the interest and sit, I mean, he'll go to them and sit down. I mean, they don't have to come to him. He'll go to their office and sit down. I mean, I had an issue with a transportation project that it was actually out on Spot Road, but I mean, it's like a nothing, but it's a big, big deal when it's yours. But it was with a sidewalk that had been put in, a multi-use trail. And we've just gotten where the hands-on approach has just left. And everybody's just gotten to where they sit behind a a computer and just look at Google Earth and just, won't go out and, shake hands with people or talk to people direct anymore. And the property owner was so dissatisfied with the way that the contractor had left his driveway, with the work that was done, and he was furious, and he had sent email after email, just upset with how it was done. And I happened to go to church with him, and so I just sent the email to Kevin. I was watching, because I was watching as the feud was developing between our engineer department and the property owner, and it was not being resolved at all. And I could just tell this was going to end not good, and it was going to end with just the way your guy, with just hating the county and going to go around just talking horrible about the county. And so I just sent it to Kevin, and on a Saturday, he just shows up at the person's house. And they talked about being Georgia Bulldog fans, and they talked about, and he told them that he would make sure that that got replaced and it got fixed back correctly. And that guy is as happy as a person can be. And it costs absolutely nothing to fix it, because he's going to wind up getting the asphalt from something at some other job, remnants. It was just like a nothing, a no-brainer to fix it. But it was just taking the time to go out and look at it and address it. And the same thing with yours. We get so caught up in bureaucracy, and that issue probably could have been addressed and fixed if somebody would have taken the time. But we're so bent on point A, point B, point C, and we've let common sense just absolutely leave us.
Tommy has a question.
Yeah, I just wanted to, you sort of stole a little bit of my thunder, but, I have this theory that we have more ways to communicate than we've ever had in the history of the world, and we've never been worse at it than we are now. Because it seems like it comes down to communication, and, the online system that's been created is an attempt, I assume, to create efficiency and simplify things. It's really just made it more cumbersome. So I guess my question is, how do you bring the human element back, where a developer, a builder, a contractor can meet with someone? I mean, I realize we're in the middle of a pandemic, hopefully at the end of it, but meet with someone, understand exactly what the requirements are, and then have us be able to hold you all accountable not to move the goalpost. So I guess that's, for starters, the fact that leadership wants to hear this feedback, to me, makes me optimistic. It makes me feel like that we're headed in the right direction. So I give you credit for that. But moving the goalpost and understanding exactly what is required of us, I think if we can bring the human element back, I think that would make a big, I'm very much old fashioned. I would much rather look you in the eye and talk to you and have a conversation than send an email to where you may not be able to respond for 24 or 48 hours. And I think that adds time and frustration to where a face-to-face conversation can make a huge difference. So that's, I guess, one point I would want to make. The second thing I would want to bring up, and I don't know if this is the right time to do it or not, but I would just caution the county to be very careful from an impact fee standpoint. In light of what we're talking about right now, and just some of the perception of doing business in Forsyth County. I'm new to the county in terms of development. I don't have the history that Robert has. I have found everyone that I have had that human interaction with has been incredible. Vivian is a rock star, Scott, Alex, everybody has been really, really top notch. You've offered your time to meet with me. But I think, you're at a tipping point where there is a negative perception. And if there were impact fees that were meaningful on top of what the barriers that are already there, I would caution you to look at that very closely.
I bought him a burrito the other day to say that about me and Alex.
Tommy, do you feel that whenever you go to Cherokee County or to Dawson County, where impact fees, or do you feel the same way?
Well, I can't say that really I have the experience. I haven't built in either one of those counties. So I can't quite honestly answer that question.
Understand. because so much goes into it and what we're looking at. We're also looking at if the developers are paying into transportation in other ways. Because if they are, then that doesn't make sense because we do the impact fees. If they're not, the distribution and taking care of the road maintenance, because that's the most expensive, that water and sewer, but road maintenance is so expensive it never stops, as well as building roads. And the commercial end of it does bring in additional wear and tear on the roads. So nobody's trying to be punitive to the developers at all, just trying to be more, I guess, fair, because we do have on residential. So with that, and we have other counties as well, some of our bordering counties have the impact fees, but they're low. They're nothing like what the consultant put on our study. I had a fit about that because the consultant came in and gave the rate that is the highest rate allowed by the state of Georgia, which was not even, we hadn't even talked about it yet. And they put that in there and then compared it to these low rates that the other counties had decided on themselves after going through their own analysis. So it gave the wrong impression. It gave the impression that we were just really trying to price gouge the dickens out of you guys with impact fees, and that was not it at all. So.
One thing is added, I mean, in my mind, impact fees are, that's a very general term.
It is.
And at the end of the day, what we really care about is our total cost of doing business. And, I can't give you line item by line item, but there are impact fees already. So adding additional impact fees, that we may call it something different, but at the end of the day, it's an additional cost. And, I think one of the reasons that from an industrial standpoint that the county doesn't have as much supply right now is because quite frankly, the rental rates weren't keeping up with the cost of construction for years and years and years. And only now is that the case. But with all of the materials that are, in disruption in the supply chain that we're having, just how expensive it is to construct a building outside of what the government, is mandating, is that going to be the case? Will the market be able to maintain that kind of rental rate growth to keep up with the cost of construction? And, that's a component of it, because it could slow down, or you could end up with industrial real estate that services the institutional set, but the mom and pop businesses, which is the bread and butter of what we all do, whether we like it or not, although it doesn't make the paper. I mean, that's, that could get left behind. And so it's, there's just a lot that goes into it.
See, I think that it is also the chamber's job. I love telling them what their job is, but I think it's their job, and anybody that pays membership to them, I think you should pressure them to be their job, that they ought to be educating each commissioner to know, because commissioners walk in and they know nothing about commercial real estate. They know nothing about, and we adopt these ordinances, and because of the pressure that is put on by citizens who absolutely 90% of them know nothing about cost. They know nothing. All they know is what it costs them to order off Amazon, or what it costs them to order off of whatever. They have no idea what it costs you to build a building, the materials, what it costs you to, to pour a slab, or what it costs you to buy the property, what it costs you. And I've asked the chamber since becoming chair. I mean, I asked Kevin, or asked Vivian, anytime we start to do something, you should be required to come to the board and tell us what's that going to impact that category, that business. If we're about to do a tree ordinance, what's the impact? We've been doing that almost 2 years and we've got nothing from the chamber on it. And we're about to make a decision that is going to greatly affect commercial. And we hadn't heard from anybody on the commercial end of it at all. And then all of a sudden, watch, there'll be a zoning attorney come up and say, well, they're wanting to annex into the city because the city doesn't make you plant any trees. The city doesn't want to do this, and we're going to be, well, that's the first I've heard of it. Everybody in District 1 is wanting to move into the city of Cumming because they don't make you do anything. All they make you do, put up more billboards. I mean, they don't want to do, and it's like, well, But why didn't anybody tell us that before we voted on it? We wouldn't have done that if we had known. And now we're hearing about it. So we paused it, and that's the same with impact fees. I voted against the impact fees on commercial the first time, and we stopped it and we didn't do it. And unless somebody shows me something different, I don't think I support it this time, because I represent North Forsyth. I'm competing with Dawson, and they are out doing the daylights out of us commercially. And I'm hoping to start competing with them. I mean, I'm wanting to have a town center at Coal Mountain and to start really bringing in some commercial with this interchange. And I want to start rocking their world with, more and more commercial. I want to create jobs. I mean, I hate it when we hear 70% of our people travel outside the county, to go to work every day. That's part of our transportation issue. We got so many people leaving the county. I don't want to lose out to every other county all the time, because or vote on it and then hear, I think though we need to analyze the cost. If commercial is paying on roads, I mean, when Publix went in at Matt, they told me that they had $600,000 worth of road improvement that was added on to them from GDOT and our county in road improvements. Well, we need to know that. Those aren't conditions we give. Those are conditions that are put on at the LDP. But we also need to hear, how much is the Coal Mountain overlay costing people when they come in? True cost. That's, not that developers ever make stuff up or exaggerate at all, but what is really the true costs that are involved? What are because you're going to build a building anyway, how much did it elevate the cost? And then another thing that I asked the chamber to check into was, what does Gwinnett do or Cherokee do in the way of sewer, and what we ask people to do in sewer versus, are we asking people, or the city of Cumming asking people to put in more sewer improvements without giving any credit back? Are we being more unrealistic? Are we expecting more than other counties? I mean, we sometimes don't know that.
This is something, Commissioner Mills just brought up about the sewer, that most of Highway 20 is in my district. And for the commercial developments along Highway 20, the city owns all the water line going down and 1,000 feet back from the road. So at this point, with the two commercial projects that have been approved since I've been in office on Highway 20, they're being asked to do a whole plant there, a processing plant. And the last I heard, it was going to cost Publix $900,000 for the water sewer. And this becomes a problem because we want it to extend out, to others. So that's something else. I'm working with the water sewer that we really need the information on it. That needs to come back to us so we know what's happening and see if there's anything that we can do. The developer happened to tell me about this one. Just stumbled upon, again, a conversation about other things having to do with the development. But that in and of itself, as Commissioner Mills said, we don't know about it. We don't control that. The Board of Commissioners do not control that, but we can certainly have some input on that if we see what a stumbling block it is, as I have seen on Highway 20.
One of the things that had come up, James and I were talking about it, Commissioner Mills at the ad hoc group that we meet with to discuss economic development with, one of our first questions was, what do the counties do in regards to water and sewer around that? So I actually went out probably 3 weeks ago, talked to Gwinnett, my counterpart there, and then my counterpart at Cherokee. And one of the things that Commissioner Mills has said is, what if we had, water at every place right now that we wanted to recruit industrial to? Where would we be along the path? Well, I got the answer to that because that's exactly where Gwinnett is. 10, 15 years ago, Gwinnett actually posed the same question and said, what if, and set on a path to do that. And so my counterpart at Gwinnett County no longer has has an issue of running water and sewer to a location, it's already there. So when if they have to incentivize a project, it's not to run the water and sewer. I think it's like, what, $1 million a mile or something like that. It's outrageous. But even the Rowan side, if you WROAN, it's this 1,800 acre tech industrial park that they hope to build in the future. They don't even have the water and sewer there, but they're not marketing it. They're telling the story on the website, but they don't plan to physically market it for another 3 years, because every year a portion of their budget gets water closer and closer and closer. They say in 3 years they have the water there, then they'll market it. But that's what Gwinnette's doing. Cherokee, when I talked to my counterpart there, good friends, but she told me, she says, just the fact that you guys are having those conversations, it puts you light years above us. Their water and sewer isn't actually at the table in economic development. You know, their development authority actually develops industrial parks, and they pay the same thing as any developer would. So the fact that we're having these conversations now, you know, is great. And, you know, 10, 15 years from now, we'll be where it's, and one of the things that we did is Alex and I used the county players. We're blessed in the fact that we do have water and sewer, if not there, very close to our prime commercial properties.
Yeah, but what bothers me about water and sewer, and is I've been doing this long enough that I've watched, and it is being, we've got to improve, we've got to have a strategy to it, and we've got to have, it's being put in by residential developers, and that's where it goes. And you can look back when it first started, when the county started to be developed, like the year 2000. Everywhere it went, if you had a map, if we were looking at it and the way it was done, it was absolutely laid out by the tract builder. I mean, you could see it. And that's where that is the plan of our water and sewer. I mean, and that was how our county has developed out. Our water and sewer has all been paid for, and it's all been mapped out by our residential developers.
All right, so we're actually over the 11 o'clock time for this meeting. I want to give a shout out to Commissioner Mills, Commissioner Cooper. Thank you. It's a topic that nobody likes to talk about, but we're blessed in the fact that you guys are willing to come here and actually have this discussion. Guys, I could not have teed this up better for you. If you actually have questions, I'm sure they'll want to, you know, stay on if they can, answer a few more questions. Before we go, I would like to introduce Slade. He's over in the corner. Slade, I'm bringing you up, let you introduce yourself to the group, and then you can close us out.
Slade Gulledge, and I'm the new Economic Development Vice President for the Chamber. I'm really glad to be here. I'm sorry I was late. We were at the Development Authority. It ran a little bit overtime. Commissioners, thank y'all for being here today and being so gracious with your time. I look forward to meeting each one of you at the overtime, so I want to make sure you get the rest of your day back. Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, well, that will close us out. Again, thank you all for coming. I want to make a shout out to Vivian. Our jobs really require us to get closer and closer and closer as we work on these projects that you guys are talking about, impact fees, the tree ordinance. And then when you guys have an issue, when I should be first contact, because we're recruiting you, you know, the handoff to Vivian and helping her solve problems. You know, if you haven't met her, please introduce yourself to her. But I worked 2 years before I came to work for the chamber. I actually worked for an industrial developer. We did some industrial parks here, and I know I used to be the person who did not have the Vivian. You know, I was the one that was running the plans over. I was the ones that was going to pick up the plans and, you know, read into the comments and all that stuff. We did not have a pivot point at that point, or pivot person to push our stuff through. We just had to wait for the comments to come up. So Vivian, thank you for the job you're doing. Commissioner Mills, Commissioner Cooper, thank you so much. And with that, you know, again, just remember COVID, social distance, greet each other, love each other, just not too close.